Sincerity this evening, it is an honor and a privilege for me to be asked to serve as the MC this evening. This is going to be a wonderful tribute, and we want to recognize there are many what I would call dignitaries in the audience, but I have been asked to recognize a few who are with us this evening. I believe former Governor Paul Patton is with us. Governor Patton. I know I saw Mayor Jim Gray earlier. Mayor Gray. Judge David Holton of the Jefferson District Court. Please stand if you are here. Philip Shepard, judge in the Franklin Circuit Court. Judge Shepard. Representative Kelly Flood. Representative Flood. Member of the Kentucky Board of Education, Bridget Blom Ramsey. Also here with us, the person who argued the 1989 Kentucky Supreme Court case, which helped lead to the Kentucky Education Reform Act, HERA, which was passed in the spring of 1990, Deborah Daugherty. Also close by to my left, Gail Hart, our UK Libraries National Advisory Board President. And former state representative, he was also chair of the Education Committee, Representative Carl Rollins. Tonight is about education and the future for our children and our grandchildren and beyond. I'm not a native Kentuckian, but we moved here 28 years ago. I'm a Kentuckian now, through and through. This is a wonderful place to live. We're blessed here in the city of Lexington, in Fayette County, to have what I consider a wonderful public school system, and it's getting better all the time. Stu Silverman, who now chairs the Pritchard Committee, is one of the people that's helped to build that. And we'll be talking with Stu later this evening. But in addition, as we look to the future, Kentucky, I believe, is one of the best kept secrets in our nation. I grew up in New York State. In New York State, I think, sadly, many of the best days have come and gone. Kentucky has yet to scratch the surface of what we can become. I firmly believe that. A person who is leading this university and taking on that challenge of leading us to previously unimagined heights came here. He's a native of Alabama, came here in July of 2011. He accepted the post as the 12th president of the University of Kentucky. There are a couple of people, I am not one of them, a couple of rather prominent people, I've heard even Speaker of the House mention this, but they thought, why are we hiring this fellow? He's too old. He was 61 at the time. Well, I want to tell you, you 30-year-olds out there, good luck keeping up with this guy. He is energetic, he is visionary, and as you may have heard, and if you haven't heard, I just want to testify to it, this guy knows how to execute a game plan. Please welcome the 12th president of the University of Kentucky, President Eli Capilouto.
Thank you, Carl. It is true that the speaker had some choice words about my selection. I've told him, and excuse me for repeating the story, that's not the only time I've been questioned since I arrived. A couple of months after I was here, I was walking through the parking lot at Commonwealth Stadium before the first football game, and I was really happy to greet everybody and welcome them. And two ladies walked up to me, and one said, are you the president of the University of Kentucky? And I said, yes, ma'am, I am. And she looked at me and I said, anything you want to tell me? And she said, you know, you don't look as ugly as you do on TV. I'm really humbled by it. By the honor I have tonight to accept a gift on behalf of our university, but for generations to come. And especially as a new Kentuckian who is dazzled every day by the work of all of those who came before me, I salute you. All of you know that the strength of our country resides in the education of our people. Nuala Pell, the widow of the late Senator Claiborne Pell, for whom the Pell Grant Financial Aid Program is named, articulated this inexorable truth as an unmistakable lighthouse for our nation's future. You see, the light of education has always been and always will shine the way forward. The question for all of us is, will we follow its course? And what will we do to make sure that others are able to follow its course? For more than 3 decades, Dr. Robert Sexton and the Pritchard Committee for Academic Excellence shone the light on the immortal and unyielding truth regarding education. And through them, through you, our Commonwealth illuminated the path to a brighter future for generations of Kentuckians. I didn't know Dr. Sexton, but after learning about him, I feel like maybe I knew him my entire life. I relied on a great source, Linda Blackford of the Herald Leader, who's here. Now, I've been covered by Linda, and Linda has high standards. But this is what she said, and coming from her, it's a darn reliable source. She said it was the most passionate and pragmatic person I ever knew. He never stopped fighting. Those are powerful words. This evening, the University of Kentucky proudly accepts the great gift bestowed to us by Ms. Pamela Sexton and the board of the Pritchard Committee for Academic Excellence. As the state's flagship land-grant university, we are charged with faithfully executing our responsibility to be a safeguard, a chief repository for our past, and to provide the Commonwealth the information to light our future. And we are humbled by the gift of this rich collection. I want to congratulate and thank Dean Terry Birdwhistle and his entire staff who are entrusted with its preservation. I know, because I have relied on them since my arrival, that they will guard all of this carefully. I want to congratulate them not only for this service they provide the Commonwealth, but they are transforming our library system for the 21st century. The files, documents, reports, recordings, and photographs detailing the history of the Pritchard Committee and Dr. Sexton will prove invaluable for future scholars of educational history and our policymakers. Equally important, the collection chronicles the tangible, meaningful transformation in Kentucky education that has taken place in the last 30 years. I have to say this as a new Kentuckian. I know oftentimes we like to beat up on ourselves, I've noticed, but what happened here is nothing short of dramatic. It befits the word transformational. You know, I know, I learned before I arrived that we were once considered to have amongst the worst educational outcomes in the nation. but we've been in the leapfrog business. We have made a substantial jump in the rankings, and we're recognized as a leader in the progress we've made in educational outcomes. Recently, Time magazine acknowledged Kentucky as an unlikely pioneer. They call the Commonwealth an undisputed leader in holding its teachers and students to a higher bar. Now, Kentucky governors, elected officials, superintendents, and university presidents come and go. But Dr. Sexton and the Pritchard Committee, they were always here, and their work remains. Tangible evidence of incredible accomplishments. They stood stalwart and passionate to declare the merits of an education. They always knew that the preponderance of data and research objectively and unequivocally state what Edward Pritchard believed and Dr. Sexton championed. That is, education is a path to a larger life. Their tireless advocacy changed not just our schools, but for the future to come, for generations of communities. The truth of that is found not in the mere numbers or the jump in rankings. It's found in the trajectory of the state. This is now part of our culture. They understand, as you do, that the best way to begin to change a life is to start reading a book to a child. The best way to open a world of possibilities was to put a book in the hand of students. The best way to turn seemingly unreachable dreams into realities was to encourage lifelong learning and to ensure the education of every person, regardless of their race, economic status of life, or culture, or background. That's how you change a life. That's how you change a community. That's how you ensure that a nation prospers. We knew, and we know. Dr. Sexton knew that despite our quantifiable success, much work remains. Often, too often, children struggle in Kentucky in abject poverty. Often, way too often, students drop out of school. Often, too often, students can graduate from high school with honors but still not be ready for a college education. And often, too often, students graduate from college not fully prepared for a global society of commerce and culture. So work remains. We must continue to improve these outcomes. The University of Kentucky stands to be a proud partner in this rich endeavor. Our faculty, staff, and students in the College of Education and other colleges are deeply committed not only to the traditional work of a university, generating research, teaching classes, and building scholarship in their fields. Our deep commitment extends to our service to community. It is part of who we are. It is the DNA of the University of Kentucky. In 1880, the University of Kentucky was the first public institution for teacher training in Kentucky. Since then, our College of Education has dutifully discharged its responsibility as the teacher of teachers. But now, in service to a new day and new responsibilities and challenges for Kentucky, we're evolving. We've extended that mission and are engaged in improving the P20 system, for which we all hold responsibility. For nearly 80 years, our university's early childhood lab has been home to early learning programs for children and served as a teacher training facility to prepare early childhood professionals. The center collaborates with Fayette County Public Schools, Head Start, and the visually impaired preschool services. The Kentucky P20 Innovation Lab aims to address one of the most perplexing challenges of our time: How do we transform public education to sustain a culture of innovation and continuous quality improvement? Recently, our university partnered with the Fayette County Public Schools in their new Science, Technology, Engineering, Arts, and Math, our STEAM Academy. This so represents the tradition of our university and community, partnering together. These STEAM students are routinely on the UK campus attending classes, and our faculty, staff, and students can be found on site at the STEAM Academy. It is this two-way street connecting the real world to our university that enriches and empowers us to do better what we hold as responsibilities. So that is the kind of work that we must continue together. I want to thank the Pritchard Committee again, and especially Mrs. Sexton, for this incredible gift that they are entrusting to the University of Kentucky. We will guard it well. We are deeply honored to add this important piece of our history to our collection and forever preserve it for generations of researchers, policymakers, and citizen advocates like yourselves. This precious gift reminds us we must continue to shine the light for our Commonwealth. We must never back away from reminding us every day that our collective strength and future lies in our children and their education. And on a personal note, as a new Kentuckian, thank you for being that beacon of light that calls to service people like me who hope to change for the better a life, a community, and a commonwealth. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Capilouto, for those very appropriate remarks. Next on the program, I would like to introduce a person who came to the University of Kentucky a number of years ago. She has served as University Archivist and now is the UK Library's Associate Dean for Special Collections. Please welcome Deirdre Skaggs. Deirdre.
So yesterday I gave a talk to 54 or so fourth graders in one of our elementary schools here in Lexington. And I talked to them about primary sources and archival research. And they were one of the best audiences I've ever had. You all are amazing, don't get me wrong. But they were so inspiring, and it ties in so well with what we're here for tonight and what I feel like I do as an archivist in preserving history and making it accessible. And looking at those fourth graders who were so excited, it gave me hope in our future, and I'm going to hold on to that for a while. So being the Associate Dean of Special Collections is my job, but it's also something I'm truly passionate about. I do believe in preserving history for future generations so that they can make our society a better place. Robert Sexton was passionate about changing education so that Kentucky could be a better place, not just in the future, but at each and every moment. He was passionate about citizen advocacy for Kentucky's education system, and he did something about it. I grew up in rural Kentucky, and I can tell you that my high school education was stronger because of Robert Sexton and the Pritchard Committee. And that foundation certainly helped form who I am, and I know that it impacted the person who is standing in front of you all today. I think that the fact that you're all here speaks to the integrity, to the commitment, to the legacy that Robert Sexton left for us, and for the future that he has influenced. It is an inspiration to celebrate the life and the work of this one man who deeply impacted so many. And I hope that his life's work will continue to inspire, inform, and challenge the education system and beyond through his archival legacy at UK libraries. As President Capilouto mentioned, the University of Kentucky is the land-grant institution, and it is dedicated to improving the lives of our citizens. As such, UK Libraries Special Collections must preserve, provide access, and promote the collective history of all Kentuckians. Among our needs as a society, education is critical. The Wendell H. Ford Public Policy Research Center in Special Collections contains vital bipartisan political papers and public policy collections that are used by scholars on an international level. Including the Robert Sexton papers and the Pritchard Committee records into this collection is essential in continuing a Center for Research Excellence. To study the history of education reform, citizen advocacy, and of education and public policy, scholars will turn to the papers of Robert Sexton and the Pritchard Committee for Academic Excellence. Historians will find that the vision, the passion, and the dedication of Robert Sexton led this change. Researchers, students, and even the general public will be able to study these primary research materials because of the continued vision of Pam Sexton and the Pritchard Committee, who committed to donating them to the UK Libraries Special Collections. There is a great deal of trust involved with donating a collection to any repository. The donor is turning over records that they may have written themselves, materials they have collected, used, and respected. They're doing that, they're giving it to someone else, someone who is likely unfamiliar to them, to be responsible for their care. And this is a responsibility that I take much pride in. Kentucky is my home. It's where my child will grow up, and I am committed to doing my part in making its future a better place as well. So I want to thank Pam Sexton, the Pritchard Committee members and its staff for taking this step into the future with the University of Kentucky. So I hope to leave you tonight with just a few words.
Kentucky needs some kind of group that's going to beat the drums, raise issues, in a way push and prod public officials. So after early 82 through 1982 into 1983, they started to have little meetings. I think that the most important one came in the summer of 1982, where they started the ball rolling to create a separate and autonomous committee. Keep in mind that I had developed, to me, working with that committee was a very emotional and personal commitment. I became committed to the notion that if common citizens who don't have the authority of state government have to be involved in their government at all levels. And here was a perfect example of people who had shown the ability and the interest in doing something.
Thank you again.
Thank you, Deirdre. Our next speaker is somebody who I met years ago when he was in a different part of his career, but I've come to know him very well over the last 2 or 3 years. Currently, he serves as Director of MBA programs in the Executive Education Center here at the University of Kentucky in the Gatton College of Business and Economics. He's a native Lexingtonian. He told me when I did a feature story about him when he was first working for the university that he's always lived in the same zip code. Well, I want to tell you that's a good thing, because he was in the school district where he then later had his kids go through, Cassidy and Morton and Henry Clay. He was a graduate, he is a graduate of the University of Kentucky. Went on to get his law degree, practiced law, had a career of 10 years with the Keeneland Association. All that time, while his kids were growing up, he and his wife were involved in the site-based councils at all their schools. He was president of the PTA. He and his wife, co-presidents of the PTA at Henry Clay. They also had Harvey, whom I can't believe that Mrs. Wilkinson put up with this, but on top of all that, he got nominated to fill an unexpired term on the school board in Fayette County, and then became chair of the Fayette County Board of Education. Basically, this fellow has spent, how old are you, 30? He spent all of his life, he's still a young man, but Harvey Wilkinson has spent all of his life and continues to this day to inspire young people to do better and to make our education system better, including now at the higher education level. Please welcome Harvey Wilkinson, who is the chair of the Pritchard Committee Board and also a member of the UK Libraries National Advisory Board. Harvey.
Carl, thank you. Don't you love him? Dr. Capilouto, I'm glad you left your zip code. We're grateful to have you. And we appreciate all of your vision and leadership that you've shown, and you've made a big, big positive difference in our university in a very short period of time. So we're very grateful for that. And you're sitting next to one of my very dear friends, Terry Birdwhistle, Dean Birdwhistle. And you know, a library is really the heart and soul of any university. And that's truly the case at UK. And our UK libraries are the jewel in the crown for our whole education system here on campus. And we appreciate your leadership, Terry, and your vision. And I know that you and Deidre and your wonderful staff will do a remarkable job for us in preserving these rich papers, and we appreciate it. I want to thank everybody for being here. I look out here, and it's just wonderful to see so many good, dear old friends. For God, 30s. Times two. That's right. But we do appreciate you coming. And we're here to celebrate the legacy of Bob Sexton and the Pritchard Committee. The Pritchard Committee has been instrumental in shaping the education policy in Kentucky, beginning with a blue ribbon panel appointed by the Council on Higher Education in 1980 to explore higher education in Kentucky's future. This group of 30 citizens studied the issues and made sweeping recommendations for improving higher education. It was clear in their minds that working around the edges on these issues would not solve the challenges that lay ahead for our state. Bob Sexton was asked to staff the work of that group, and Edward F. Pritch, as everybody knows him, was named as chair. This was no ordinary group of citizens. They cared deeply about Kentucky's future. They were smart, they asked good, probing questions, and with their keen minds and Bob's diligence and Mr. Pritchard's ability to attract media attention, he was very good at that, the panel began to raise awareness about the issues and policy changes that could make a difference in Kentucky. After the first report, In Pursuit of Excellence, which was released in 1981, it looked like then Governor Brown and the legislature were going to simply ignore it. These tenacious members said that wouldn't do, so they organized to become an independent nonprofit and took the study of the elementary and secondary education. It was clear that improvements in higher ed wouldn't happen without reform in elementary and secondary education. So the committee expanded, adding about 30 more parents and then activists. They hired Bob and went back to work. The Path to a Larger Life was released in 1985, again making sweeping recommendations in education, addressing teaching, the condition of children and youth, school finance, which is, again, a hot topic, vocational and technical education, to name a few. Many of these recommendations were included in the 1990 reforms. By the way, when Governor Paul Patton took on higher education reforms in 1998, 17 years after the first report was released, he included a number of the recommendations in the first report, which are now in statute. That work, along with the 1984 town forums, which brought together 20,000 people out on a cold night in November to talk about education, helped raise the awareness that education did matter in Kentucky, and the citizens of this state did want policymakers to do something about it. Mr. Pritchard was scheduled to speak as a part of the opening on KET that night, but unfortunately was admitted to the hospital that day and never came home. He died in December of 1984, leaving a powerful legacy behind. People wondered what would happen to the committee without his leadership, but there was no question in the minds of the members who cared deeply about the future of Kentucky that the movement would continue. Under Bob's capable leadership, the work of the Pritchard Committee continued to prosper, developing a national reputation for advocacy. The Kentucky Education Reform Act of 1990 didn't come about in a vacuum. Throughout the 1980s, Bob Sexton spoke, and I might add Pam, spoke at every civic business club where he could get an audience. They worked with the media to help them understand the issues. He met with and provided background for almost every new education reporter. He helped organize an education coalition consisting of teachers, school board members, superintendents, and PTA members, as well as others, who met quietly over a 2-year period to work out agreements on improving education. He worked behind the scenes on the equity lawsuit and provided testimony on the condition of education in Kentucky. He helped identify the consultants who crafted the 1990 education reform legislation, and he guided the advocates to support the implementation of the law. In 1989, he added one staff member to help, Cindy Heine. Cindy, well, please stand. We're so grateful to you, Cindy. Cindy came on to help provide a second set of eyes, ears, and hands in the work of informing, studying, advocating for school improvement. He had done this with one staff assistant throughout these early years. It's amazing. In 1991, after the education reforms were enacted and a larger outside foundations took interest in supporting our work, he hired additional staff, including Bev Raimondo. Bev, please stand. Thank you so much, Bev. Bev created the Citizen and Parent Advocates to support implementation of CARA. Bev worked to engage citizens at the local level, hired regional staff, and then in 1997 created the Commonwealth Institute for Parent Leadership, which we call SIPL. Last fall, after diligent efforts on the part of Bev and Cindy and many others, it was renamed the Governor's Commonwealth Institute for Parent Leadership. Congratulations for your hard work. She and GSIPL now enjoy a national reputation for parent engagement after training close to now 1,800 parents who in turn have spread the word, and it's really gone viral in all of our school districts. About that same time, Bob got a call from the National Business Roundtable seeking support for business engagement and education. Ashland Oil, Humana, and UPS joined hands to form the Partnership for Kentucky School Reform. Bob was a tireless and strategic leader, intent on seeing changes in education to improve the status of his beloved state. He gathered a group of caring citizens together who were intent on making a difference. I'd like to leave with a quote by Wendy Purifoy on on Public Education Network. She once said, "Bob Sexton shows us what is possible when a small group of dedicated citizens refuse to accept the status quo." I don't think it could be said any better. With Bob's death 3 years ago, people have wondered again what would happen to the Pritchard Committee. And again, the members know the importance of their work. They care deeply about the quality of our schools and have identified a new leader in Stu Silverman. Stu, please stand up. Stu and his dedicated staff are carrying on the legacy that Bob created and left behind. We're so very grateful for the vision and hard work of Bob Sexton, Cindy Heine, Bev, Stu, and Pam, and so many others who have truly made a difference on the quality of education in our state and the quality of life in our state. So thank you all.
Thank you so much, Harvey. Harvey did mention Stu Silverman. We were fortunate enough here in Fayette County, I don't like to use the word steal, but we recruited perhaps. Everything was going well in the western part of the state, Owensboro, for Stu and his family there as he was the superintendent of schools. Came here to Fayette County. We were fortunate to have his visionary and strong leadership for 7 years. And you know, this gentleman, as I walked into the room tonight and he stuck out his right hand to greet me very warmly, and I noticed his tie. And the tie that he is wearing basically reflects the heart of this individual. When he came to Fayette County to be superintendent, it was no longer the Fayette County Board of Education. When you went past the big building on Main Street, out front it said, "It's about kids." Well, that tie that he's wearing, it's all about kids. Edward Pritchard, Robert Sexton, and now the current Executive Director of the Pritchard Committee, Stu Silverman.
Thank you, Carl. And thank everyone for being here tonight for this phenomenal and such an important occasion. Harvey, I haven't been in the same zip code all my life, but I often tell people that I wasn't born in Kentucky, but I got here as quick as I could. I feel so blessed to be a part of what's happening in this state, to be a part of the history that has brought us to this point. And I have the distinct pleasure and honor to introduce some folks tonight. And it's very special for me to be able to do this. Two of our original founding members are, can you not hear me okay? Two of our original founding members are here with us this evening, and I'd like to ask them both to stand. Lois Weinberg and Pam Sexton. And Joe Graves is here too. Where are you, Joe? Oh my goodness. Oh, what a great surprise. Thank you so much for being here. And thank you all for the work that you do to get us to this point in time. We also have some of our past and our current board chairmen here with us this evening. And there were tough times over the years, and these folks stood strong to make sure that the Pritchard Committee continued to move forward. I'd like to recognize those folks. When I call your name, if you please stand. Again, Lois Weinberg, Bill McCann, Would you give Bill a nice round of applause? Penny Louise Maddox. Sam Corbett. Hilma Prather. And our current chair, Harvey Wilkinson. Thank you all so much for serving as leaders of this committee over the years. I'd also like to ask our members, our Pritchard Committee members, and any of our G. Sipple Fellows who are here, just to please stand so we can recognize you also. Thank you all. We had our new member orientation earlier this evening, and it was really a great time to be together, but it's also a special night for the Pritchard Committee as we are inducting our first student member ever. And Andrew Brandon, where are you, Andrew? I know I saw you here a few minutes ago. I don't know if you... Oh, we had homework. Well, that's good. I'm glad to see you doing that, but his parents are here. Would you all stand, please, so we can recognize you? You know, back when everything got started, Bob was by himself, and he had one person to help him. And that person was the receptionist. She was the secretary. I can't look at you, Pam. I'm sorry. The accountant, the meeting organizer, all rolled into one. She did everything for Bob, and she told me tonight she also gave him hell. So I'm not sure what that's all about, but she did all that work, and that was before laptops, before office copiers, before cell phones. Just a special lady who, without her, we probably wouldn't be here either tonight. So Penny Camp, would you please stand? Thank you, Penny. And two of our longest long-term staff members, you've already met two of them. I'm going to ask them to stand again. Cindy, 1989, Bev, 1991, and one additional staff member who's been with the Pritchard Committee from the near the beginning is Pam Shepard in 1990. Now, don't any of you business folks try to steal Pam, but she's probably the best office manager in this state, so thank you. And then our current staff. We are so blessed to have great people working for us. We have Pritchard Committee staff, we have G. Sipple staff, and we have consultants who we work with on a regular basis. And I would ask that any of those staff members who are here, or any of our consultants, if you could please stand so we could recognize you. I would be remiss if I didn't introduce my wife. She's my rock. Kathy Silverman. I often tell people literally, I wouldn't be standing here if it wasn't for her. So after a bicycle accident, she took good care of me. And then last but not least is Bob and Pam's family. Rita and Chris Michael and their daughter Will. Could you stand, please? Paige Popka and Travis Walker. And Perry Popka. Thank you. I'm going to tell you a quick story. I may have to read it because it's a little bit emotional, but I'm going to try to share this with you. It was about a little over 2 years ago, and I was meeting with Pam Sexton. I had just started with the Butcher Committee, and we were talking about where we came from and where we needed to go. And I was quite fortunate to be able to meet with Pam, to have her share her amazing wisdom with me. Sometimes we forget the work that she did along the way, but Kelly told me not to apologize for getting emotional tonight, but while Pam was sharing that wisdom with me, I know she remembers it. She's had tears in her eyes, and she shared that she was afraid that Bob's legacy would be forgotten. And I told Pam that day that she should never, ever worry about that, because Bob's legacy would go on forever. Now, you and I know that that legacy was going to go forward, because when you have a man who devotes his life to kids like he did, with the passion that he had, and made such a positive impact on Kentucky and the United States, that would never be forgotten. But tonight, and thank you, Dr. Capilouto, tonight solidifies that. So Pam, you'll never, ever have to worry about that again. I believe that Bob's looking down on us right now, smiling. He would say how humbled he is, and he would thank everyone for being here. Then he'd look over at Rich, and he'd look back at us and say, yes, tonight was wonderful, but we still got a lot of work to do tomorrow. Folks, Bob would be distraught about Kentucky's sad financial state right now, and he'd be right here fighting with us to get adequate funding in this state for our schools and for our kids, so we can continue to make the kind of progress that started in 1990. He would be happy to know about KEAT and our education summit tomorrow, where we will shine a light across this state about the serious needs we are facing. He would tell us to go forward and fight the fight for our kids and never give up. You know, I don't know how long the good Lord will have me do this work, but I stand here tonight to say to each of you that the Pritchard Committee will continue to carry the legacy of Bob Sexton forward for the future of our kids in this Commonwealth. Again, thank you.
Thank you so much, Stu. Our next speaker, you've heard his name mentioned before. He is the Dean of Libraries here at the University of Kentucky. He came to the university some 40 years ago. Again, the age thing, he was only about 8 or 9. One of those child wonders, you know. Graduated Georgetown College at age 8, got his master's at age 9, and then went to work. Anyway, this fellow is part of the inspiring story, though, because what was put in place when Dr. David Rozelle was president here was the opportunity for staff members to pursue graduate degrees, or actually pursue undergraduate bachelor's degrees as well, with the university sharing in the cost, paying for 6 credit hours per semester. This gentleman took full advantage all the way toward earning his doctorate. And a few years ago, when the position was open as Dean of Libraries. This gentleman, who has a rich past in oral history, basically one of the founding rocks of the Louis Nunn Center for Oral History at the University of Kentucky. Terry Birdwhistle was the obvious choice. We didn't need to go looking around the country. We had him right here in our midst. And we're so happy that he is the Dean of Libraries here at the University of Kentucky. Please welcome Dr. Terry Birdwhistle.
Thank you, Carl. I'm telling you, if you haven't had the opportunity to be introduced by Carl, I hope you someday have that opportunity. It will pump you up. I just want to, at this point in the program, add my welcome to all the members of the Pritchard Committee. You all are heroes of mine. I can remember back in the early 80s hearing about the work that was getting underway, and to see how far it's come, and see all of you here tonight to celebrate this wonderful occasion. It just makes for a perfect evening. Stu and Harvey, your leadership is appreciated so much, and thank you all. And of course, with the president in the room, you know I'm going to say something nice about Eli Kaplan. He has many places he can be on an evening, and he chose to be here with us tonight. And I think that says a lot about his commitment to the education in this state and to the work you do with the Pritchard Committee. And I can tell you that it really matters if a university president supports a library, and Eli Capelouto really supports UK libraries, and it helps us to have evenings like this tonight, and it helps UK libraries stay among the leaders of public research libraries in the United States. So thank you very much. Much of what we are able to do in UK libraries, like the Pritchard Committee, is possible because of private support. And you can tell why this partnership with the Pritchard Committee is so good, because we share board members. And you've already met our president of our National Advisory Board, Gail Hart, who provides tremendous leadership for us. But then we share board members in Harvey and in Clay Ford, who is up from Owensboro tonight. Thank you, Clay, for being here. We also have a few other of our board members here tonight who I want to recognize. Kathy Johnson, Sharon Horner, and Marie Hochstrasser. If you all stand up so we can thank you. Now, lurking in the back of the room is someone I want to introduce, Dr. Tracy Campbell, who is the Ed Pritchard biographer, who wrote the biography back in the 80s, Short of the Glory. Tracy Campbell. Seen his essay on JFK in the Sunday Courier Journal, I would highly recommend it. One story I would tell about my colleague Tracy, who also serves as, in addition to being a professor in the history department, as co-director of the Wendell Ford Center for UK Libraries. But I had the opportunity, soon after his biography of Pritch came out, to ride with him to Louisville, where he was going to make his first appearance in front of you guys. And as we were going up the elevator at the Brown Hotel to go into the room, I wouldn't say he was shaking, but he was nervous. And he was so concerned about what you would think of that biography, and I think everyone can agree now that that has been a wonderful story of Pritch's life. Also standing back with Tracy is Dr. Doug Boyd, who's director of the Louis B. Nunn Center for Oral History at the University of Kentucky Libraries. And when Pam comes up, she's going to make a special announcement about how oral history is going to be involved in enhancing these collections even more. So now it's my honor and real pleasure to introduce a person you all already know very, very well. Pam Sexton worked with Bob Sexton in building the Pritchard Committee. Pam is a Kentucky treasure. Wyoming has no claim on you. Today we take this opportunity collectively to thank Pam for her hard work and dedication to the Pritchard Committee. In that journey with Bob, she was his spouse, his best friend, and a true partner in improving education in Kentucky. Please welcome Pam Sexton.
This is one of the most heartwarming things I can remember. I haven't seen all of you in this profusion gathered probably since Bob's funeral. So I'm really, really happy to have it be a happy occasion tonight. And to have my family here. We're missing two who live far away. Can you hear? Dr. Capilouto, I appreciate your interest and your time and being here and for providing this special place for us to meet. Just a little bit closer to my mouth. Is that better? I'm kind of hoarse, so you'll have to excuse me. And I'd also like to thank Dean Terry Birdwhistle and his staff, especially the kindness and expertise of Deirdre Skaggs and her lovely remarks. Thank you, Deirdre. And Doug Boyd for his kindness and expertise. And to Stu Silberman and the wonderful staff of the Pritchard Committee always. But there are two special people to whom I express deep appreciation. They both helped me beyond measure to get to this place tonight. First, my dear friend, novelist and poet, Mary Ann Taylor Hall, who while I was mired in grief over Bob's death, told me that I must have help sorting what he had left, which was a house full, several offices full, books, papers, research tapes, artifacts, and you know the story. Important to Kentucky's history, I knew, because I had helped create some of it like many of you did. Not long before Bob died, Mary Ann lost her husband, James Baker Hall, one of Kentucky's Poets Laureate, and my treasured writing teacher and Bob's good friend. She knew full well the territory in which I found myself because she had found herself there. She suggested I call a young mutual friend of ours, an accomplished archivist, oral historian, artist, and with her husband, David Wagner, organic farmer. Her name is Arwen Donahue. At Mary Ann's urging, Arwen agreed to help begin the organization process for things that were spread over my 3-story house, as well as a 30-year-plus accumulation of Pritchard Committee work in various basements of downtown buildings. I'm afraid Arwen and members of the Pritchard Committee staff have spent way too much time in basements. And Deirdre too. She created and executed a careful process over the next 2 years, became a dear and trusted friend, and a scholar of Bob's life and the work of the Pritchard Committee. What we have now is a fully cataloged library of books on public policy, education, and education policy housed at the Pritchard Committee, and these gifts to the University of Kentucky special collections that cover Bob's early career, the 33-year course of the Pritchard Committee's work, and its ongoing and future work. I am forever grateful to these two women, and I would ask that they stand and be recognized.